Alright, it's about 9:30 in the morning on the 23rd of June, 2022. It is as chaotic as it feels. I was like, okay, let me unload the entire freaking trailer. To go into town last night to get something to eat, I dropped the trailer and just took the bike. Since the motor wasn't working, there's no sense dragging the trailer behind you. And also in the process, I swapped wheels, so I got the original OEM wheel back on the bike since I don't need a motor. Now I'm looking at the new and improved motor, which I will attempt to wire into the old controller, which is going to be, honestly, I've been putting it off. I'm kind of scared, but it'll either work or it won't. And I don't think I can hurt the motor. I could hurt the controller. I can't use the controller because the old motor doesn't work anymore, so it's not a huge loss. I think that's a $12 controller, so it's not a huge risk either way. If it works, we're going to look like a hero. If it doesn't work, well, it's already broken. Yeah, it's a great way to look at it. But in the process, I had to unpack everything because I couldn't remember where the cable was. So this is the cable. What this is it's basically a male to female. Where's the light? So there's male to female sockets on here. This end goes to the motor. I taped over this end so I wouldn't get confused. The idea is I'm going to cut this cable in half. Really nicely made cable. Kind of a sad thing to do. If I put the controller close enough to the front wheel, then I don't need the extension cable. On the first time I used it, I did use the extension cable and I put the controller somewhere else, but I don't think I need that. If I do need it, I'll have to order a new cable because I'm going to cut this one in half. So we'll cut the cable, take a chunk of insulation off, and get individual wires opened out, and then we'll see what it looks like. Yeah, this is not something I do regularly exactly. There should be 3 main wires that go to the motor that drive the motor. Then there should be 3 Hall effect sensor wires that tells the controller what phase the motor is in, so it knows which part of the motor to fire. It's a lot like a distributor on a gas motor, really, to run the spark plug, so it knows which spark plug to fire at the right time. That's all this is doing. It's basically the same idea. So when you think about it like that, it's like, okay, you just, on the old motor there was a green, a blue, and a yellow, I think is how they labeled it. If that's a standard, I'll just wire this the same, and then once I get it connected, the motor controller can do automatic phase detection, so it basically auto tunes itself. You just take these there's 2 little green wires, you push them together, it'll auto tune. You shut it off, you disconnect the 3 wires, and then it should, or the little green wire, and then it should work. If that works, then we're done. Yeah, pretty much. The other option is the motor runs backwards, which would be exciting. Yeah, these motors can run backwards. So let's just hope that never happens accidentally. Yeah, we're going down the trail pulling wheelies in reverse. Worst thing I could imagine, honestly. Yeah. Well, that part is done. I'm not going to do play-by-play on here, but I was able to cut the wire, pulled the sheath off. That went pretty well. There's a nice wrapper around the wire. The trick with something like this, if you ever have to do this and if you don't have time to practice on scrap, take a sharp knife and score around on the sheath, but don't go all the way through, and then bend it a few times, and that'll break the sheath. That way you don't score into the wires. Hopefully I don't think I did all the way through. So you just kind of go around a couple times gently. It's better. So these are the Hall effect wires. These are the littlest one. And these are the motor driver wires. So there's a green, a blue, and a yellow. And down here there's also a green, a blue, and a yellow. And then there's 4 other wires. Red, black, and gray and white. And they also did a exposed ground wire on here, which is a little different. So we have 3 and 3, so that's 6. The old motor used 9 wires altogether, and this has got 6, 10, possibly 11. This one can do temperature sensing of the motor. I don't think the old one could. I'm not sure. So this has got a couple of extra wires. What I'm thinking is I'll just not hook up, well, I mean, you don't, if you got extra wires, you just can't hook them up, but you got the main wires, and then we got to experiment a little bit with this. Alright, it's just about 7 o'clock, I think. Wait. Okay, 6:45, close enough. So this is the old motor controller. This is all the wires that used to go to the old motor, now spliced and graphed onto the new pigtail that'll go down to the new motor. This part makes me incredibly nervous, but I mean, at this point it doesn't really matter. It's going to work or it's not, but what makes me nervous is the fact that all the colors are the same. I mean, like, the blue, yellow, green set is a common color scheme for the brushless motors, so they would also come with a blue, green, yellow Hall effect sensor wire, and then this is the power that goes to the Hall effect sensor. So yeah, that kind of makes sense. So there's black and a red and a white, and okay. You know, I guess what makes me nervous is all of the Chinese controller stuff I've been working with. Like my brake handles had wrong connectors and different color schemes, and I had to spend a lot of time figuring out what is a common bridging point between the stuff, you know, and it's like it's all different, you know. So there was no common colors on anything, and all of a sudden this is right, and I'm like, that just really freaks you out. I mean, that's good, but otherwise I'd really have to start digging around. It's like, okay, try to find this guy on the internet. It's actually a pretty common one. Find the color scheme for the wires that come out of it, and then go to the website for the motor and try to say, okay, you know, which of this goes with which of that, kind of thing, which would be a lot more work. But when I opened up this and realized that they were all the same colors, I'm like, okay, it's a good starting point at least. So next, what I'm going to have to do, we'll take this tire off, which is just the wheel, no motor. Pull the tire off of the wheel, put this tire on the wheel that's got the motor, which is now over here. Oh, the other one I got to show. I turn the trailer around because it's got the battery pack for the bike. This lead here normally goes to the cigarette lighter that charges my phone. I made an extension wire that comes up and runs my soldering iron. So I was soldering off of the bike battery because thanks to people like Adam Savage from Mythbusters and Tested, I'm aware of cool products once in a while, and he had this cool soldering iron that is basically a DC powered soldering iron. Normally you'd power it from a wall brick, but it's just runs on 12 volts and it works just as good as a regular one. Yeah, it's like, that's pretty cool. So that little blue thing right there is the soldering iron. The cable that it comes with is bigger than the soldering iron. And the cable came with an adapter that would hook up to a battery. So XT60 is the normal battery that a lot of people have. And then I just made a pigtail to go from XT60 down to the new Andersons. Andersons are the connectors I use on all of the high power stuff. So yeah, it's just okay. So unplug the phone charger and plug in the soldering iron. Good to go. And since I had a table to work on, great. Pretty cool. Inside the brain. So I tried spinning the new motor with the old controller. It pulses a little bit, but it's not going. It still says motor failure. So I think it's more likely in the brain because the new motor probably hasn't failed, and it wouldn't give me exactly the same code as the other motor did. So I'm just going to take a minute and look in here. There was some moisture inside the case. It had rained a while ago. Moisture is never good. It wasn't like water pouring out, but it was moist. And I did smell kind of a burnt smell, so that's never good. But what I can do though is the 3 main motor wires. I can trace them out. And these are the MOSFETs along the side. I've seen videos about this before. A very likely scenario is if I burned 1 or 2 MOSFETs, that would mean that they're basically high-speed switches, sort of a little bit like relays. So they can turn on and off very, very fast. Faster than a relay. And so basically a low voltage can turn them on and off, and it sends high voltage through or high current through to the motor. So if one of those is bad, it is repairable, but I don't have any spares, and it's not something I can probably just find in any random town. If there was a Radio Shack, I don't know, are Radio Shacks still around? If I could find a Radio Shack, that might be a possibility, but not at 8 o'clock at night. So that's where we're at now. So I'm going to take a minute and look at it. One thing I was considering, since I do have my soldering iron still, on the back side I could go over all the traces and just reflow them, is what it's called. I've done that on a few things before. Just kind of basically warm up the solder and then let it cool, and that'll be enough to kind of reconnect it all. So it's a thing. You can try it. Just be careful so that you don't have the solder flow where it's not supposed to flow. But this is a pretty well labeled little board. So yeah, kind of cool. Anyway, I'll take a few minutes and look at it. But for now, it's not working. I'm not sure if there's even enough light to show all of this. Sun went down a while ago, so backpack, tools and whatnot spread all over the cot. More stuff. The original wheel that came with the bicycle, the non-electric one. Some of the wires are hanging, but I have to leave this on for now because there's wires that come from the throttle and the display and the brake handles that would just, I'm not going to cut them, so I'm going to leave them all on there. So I just wrap some tape around here to tuck it up out of the way. I think we're okay there. This one is for the cigarette lighter for charging the phone. So where I'm at right now, the controller had water and smelt burnt inside. So when the last time it rained, it got wet inside. Not very well sealed. Okay. So all of my testing was in the desert. I never really looked at it from a waterproof point of view. So between running it really hard and it getting wet, it probably fried something in the controller. Now what I'm wondering, the motor that was on there when it died, the motor was making noise. So I'm wondering if they both failed or if one caused the other to fail. I mean, the motor sounded mechanically bad and the controller smelled electrically bad. So not really sure. I don't have any way to practically test it. It doesn't seem like I can fix it though. And where I'm at right now, when I get to my dad's house, the new controller for the new motor will be there. So it's just a matter of, from here to there. So that's kind of where I'm at. How I got here, well, on the level I can pedal. It's going to be heavy, but I can do it. I got decent gearing on here. Going up the hills I can pedal a little bit, then I'll just have to push. Coming down the hills I can coast. Alright. So yeah, it just kind of like makes my head hurt, but anyway. If that was the last controller I had, I could probably order parts to my dad's house, but I have the good controller will be there, so that's less of an issue. Yeah. Anyway, we definitely tried. Put some good work into it. It just didn't work. So, yeah. Worth a shot. I don't think I hurt anything by trying, so that's at least good. There we go. I didn't want to try to organize the tools. I'd really like to take one more look at them in the morning, so I'm just going to leave them up here and put them away when I can see them easier. That just seemed more sensible. Got my bag of chips, drink some beer, life would be good. Alright, that's sufficiently creepy. Anyway, yeah, it's been a long day. Well, okay. I recently was reminded of, or maybe I remembered it, a quote from Elon Musk when he was talking about the new Starship program, and he's like, well, success should at least be a possible option. So that was today. I was like, well, there was potential that it could work. I guess to summarize, coming into camp, or basically coming into Oregon the last couple of days, the motor was giving me trouble. But I was also seeing random errors. A couple weird glitches would happen once in a while that didn't really necessarily seem motor related. So when I took it all apart here, the motor controller did have some moisture in it and it smelled burnt. Okay, so that's not good. So I think it's possible that the old motor controller could work with the new motor, because the motor controller that I bought wasn't made for the motors that I was using it with anyway, and they still worked. It has an auto-tune feature, so it was able to figure itself out. Okay, so it's possible that it would have worked. But if the motor controller itself was also damaged, or overheated, or water damage, or both, then it wouldn't matter. It just wouldn't work anyway. I've got at least 2 of those motor controllers, one back on the ranch. That doesn't do me any good. And what it keeps coming back to is I've got the new motor, and the replacement new motor controller will be at my dad's in about a week. So the problem is what to do in that gap. If I could sit here and not spend a lot of money, I could just wait and have him mail it to me down here. That's, would be a reasonable way to do it. The problem is it's a week, and even at the campsite it's $25 a day, and without the bike working I can't get to someplace else easily, dragging everything. And this campsite is booked tomorrow, so I have to move out, and it doesn't sound like they have anything else available because we're coming into the weekend now. Okay, so I can't just sit still. One of the considerations was I could rent a truck, get a U-Haul, and haul the bike up to my dad's. Something I was just playing with in my head a couple minutes ago, and I almost thought it was going to work. The expensive part of U-Haul is going one way. It's much cheaper if you bring the truck back, but you still end up paying for miles. So it's about 500 miles each way, so let's say 1,000 miles, 89 cents a mile. 89 times 1,000, that's like $800, I think. Yeah, $800 worth. So it would be the day rate plus $800 for miles, or 890 miles. $890 for 89 cents a mile for 1,000 miles. I think that's right. Plus the cost of fuel at $5 or $6 a gallon each way. Okay. So what I was actually thinking was, if I took the truck one way, they really hit you on that. If you bring it back, they would charge you less, but then you still pay for miles, and so it wouldn't save you very much. It might be cheaper to bring the truck back than to do one way. Okay, but then you got the cost of gas. 500 miles I can do in a day. I used to drive I hit 600 miles a few times on the semis, and that's easier driving a smaller vehicle, so I could pretty much do that. I could stop if I needed to, but and also, since I would have all my camping gear with me, I could just sleep in the back of the truck if I wanted to, or camp for that matter. Okay, so that would be a factor. And then what I had thought is, if I drove up there, dropped off the bike, drove the truck back, and then I could take a train or a Greyhound back up, would be cheaper than pretty much anything else, right? The other option was if I could break the bike down and take it as cargo or as luggage on the U-Haul, or I mean on the Amtrak or on a bus. But it's really heavy, and So then I'd be like, okay, I have to take it completely apart, box it up in virtually, with very little time, and get it all right the first time, because once I take the bike apart, I can't go ride to go get more boxes or something like that. It would be just a really, really awful environment, I think. It would be much easier if I didn't have so much stuff. Okay. One other thought that I had, and I'm kind of playing with this one still. It's like, okay, so option one, put the trailer here in storage. Just go get a little storage locker, park the trailer, ride the bike up to my dad's, right? And then get the new parts, turn around and ride back. Well, I can't ride the bike with the motor without the controller working, because the motor drags. So then I'd get up to my dad's and I'd have my new controller, but not a motor and not solar panels. Like, oh, that's it's like, so I'd have a motor that worked and not enough power to get back here to get the trailer, right? The other one was leave everything here in storage, take the bus home. In about a week, I get the controller, take a bus back. Now I can fix the bike with all the stuff I've got, and then I can ride the bike home with everything. It's like, one of the things I keep coming back to is this is a part of the ride I was looking forward to. If I had the new motor and the new controller, and now I've got all the batteries and I've got 2 good solar panels, and this would be the best possible part of the trip. Like going up to Crater Lake, it's going to be a big hill, but if that thing was working, oh man, that would be a great, great ride, So I'm actually thinking about that. It's like, well, what if I did just put everything in storage and then take a bus home? I haven't looked at prices on that, but when I did the Amtrak trip a few times in the past, it was less expensive than driving myself. And with the cost of gas, it's got to be, because you get everybody riding instead of just one person, so the cost is much less. So, yeah, and it would be a reasonably short trip from here to Wenatchee, either by Amtrak or by Greyhound. I don't think Amtrak comes through this town. I think it would be Greyhound. I looked at that a little bit when I was thinking of taking the bike on the train. So, yeah, it's none of the options are really good, but thinking about it, instead of having my dad or somebody driving all the way here to get me, and the time and the cost and the fuel and everything, it's almost easier all around for me to go on a train or a bus up to there. I could get the stuff I need, come back and fix it, maybe get a campsite here again the day I get back, go to storage, get my stuff, roll into the campsite. Yeah. Makes my head hurt. It's like, you're doing this little card shuffle back and forth, and it's just like, no, just stop it. I'm like, I so wanted this to work, even if it worked, kind of, But what I keep coming back to is it just would be the worst trip ever to have to ride 500 miles without electrics, with all of the load, right? Yeah. I think the last option that I considered is if I left the trailer here, rode the bike without electrics to my dad's. All right. The only reason that would be a good idea is if it was part of the experiment of what would it be like to ride long distance on a much lighter bike without a bunch of stuff. Well, then I'd be like, okay, I wouldn't have a tent. Well, I don't have a tent anyway, but I wouldn't have the cot. I'd be looking, do I want to take the sleeping bag? The sleeping bag is in a backpack. Or what? because I can't do 100-mile days. So it would be at least a week, probably 2 weeks to get home, and I'd have none of my camping gear. Okay. And, you know, the cost of motels, I can't stop in a motel every night, and eventually it's going to get to be bad weather. You know, it's just leaving half of your stuff in one place and going without it is not good. You know, I'd be just on the bike. I would still need tire patch stuff and an air pump. I need way less tools on the bike because the wheels on the bike are quick release, so I don't even need a tool to get the tires off now. So that's a little bit easier. I could live with a little tiny air pump, I guess. But, yeah. Anyway, as disappointing as this part of the day was, it actually turned out to be a pretty good day overall. I got to meet a friend of mine that I've been friends with on Facebook for like 8 or 10 years, we think. Yeah, it's just one of those random things where you start talking to somebody randomly, and you know, some people come and go and some people just stay, and it's just like, this is a person that I've always had a good conversation with, and it was just like, wow, this is great, you know. So we actually got to meet in real life and go have, you know, a hamburger and a beer, and it was good. So yeah, I'll leave it at that for now. We'll protect people's identity unless they really want to be part of the constant circus that's my life. But yeah, it was just, you know, a nice distraction right in the middle of fixing the bike. I'm like, you know what, I'm taking a break. Yeah, so that was good. Anyway, that's it for now. As always, thanks for watching the videos to the end, if anybody does. Never know. Click on the likes and everything, and send me comments and questions and answers, and you know, there's got to be another idea I haven't thought of yet, but time I see it, I'll probably have made my decision and started doing something. So yeah, very medium to high possibility that I'm going to just put everything in storage and take a bus home right now, because I can't sit here for a week and wait, and I can't see riding the bike without electrics, and I can't fix the bike with what I've got, and I already know I've got the parts waiting for me, or by the time I get home they'll be there. So, you know, yeah, not the best solution, but the best I can think of. So anyway, that's it for now. As always, thanks for watching. Bye.